Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A great big howdy to all of you on this cool, blustery morning. My report today is primarily about weather and how the weather has affected some activities in the farming sector. More particularly, wildfires have recently devastated the Texas cattle industry, and subsequently from this, the effects could be very bad and long lasting. More than 50 dead so far. Ranch manager shows devastation of Texas wildfire. When Shane Pennington, a 56-year-old cattle farmer near Canadian, Texas, first saw flames from an enormous wildfire approaching the ranch he manages, his first concern wasn't his home, it was his animals. Pennington told CNN he returned to the ranch to find around 50 cattle dead, with nursing cows desperately searching for their lost calves. As the flames tore through the ranch, they caused excruciating injuries, burning off some animals' tails and rendering others blind. It just burned all the hair off of them, he said. Their feet are coming off. Their hooves, they're bloody. Some of them are cows that I raised right here on the ranch. It's just hard to see them burn up. Pennington is one of many cattle farmers whose livelihoods have been devastated by the Smokehouse Creek fire, the largest wildfire in Texas history, which has burned more than 1 million acres of land across the Panhandle. The state is home to about 4.1 million beef cattle, according to David Anderson, professor of agricultural economics at Texas A&M University. And more than 85% are in the Panhandle, according to Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller. Farmers and agricultural experts say the wildfire will continue to affect the cattle industry for years to come. In addition to the short-term effects of cattle killed and grievously injured by the flames, there will be lasting repercussions as herds cultivated for years struggle to recover and traumatized cows fail to reproduce. Speaking with CNN's Omar Jimenez on CNN Newsroom Saturday recently, Miller asked for donations and prayers for Texas residents who have lost homes and livestock in the wildfires. There's no grass, there's no water for the livestock, Miller stressed. We've lost over 3,000 head, which is a very small number that will double or triple easily. We've got cattle that we are going to have to euthanize because of the damage to their hooves and their udders. We'll just have to put them down. For Pennington, the inferno has been both financially and emotionally catastrophic. Your job is to keep them alive, not to destroy them, he said. It's tough. Even if they survive it, more than likely they're going to get pneumonia. They're going to get sick. They're going to die, Pennington added. He said it's already euthanized some animals due to their injuries and anticipates the number will continue growing as he identifies which animals will be unable to recover from their wounds and illnesses. And some animals will need to be culled simply because the hundreds of bales of hay meant to feed them burned up in the flames, he added. It will likely take years for the business to recover. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, Pennington said. The cattle business in Texas is worth an estimated $15.5 billion, making it by far the most profitable agricultural commodity in the state, according to the state's Department of Agriculture. There are millions of cattle across the Panhandle, specifically with some counties counting more cattle than people among its residents, the Department of Agriculture of Texas said. The losses could be catastrophic for those counties, Miller said in a news release. Farmers and ranchers are losing everything. Brandon Meir, a local rancher, volunteer fire chief, and agricultural science teacher at a local high school in the Panhandle town of Canadian, described the raging inferno as a monster. Seeing the way the flames transformed the landscape was surreal. he told CNN. I've seen this county and this country, how it is with grass and sagebrush and cattle roaming out there, and the next day we come down here and it's a barren desert, he said. In addition to damage to their hooves and eyes, many of the cattle are also suffering from smoke inhalation, which can cause fatal pneumonia. And other burns have made it impossible for some cows to nurse their calves, requiring them to be bottle fed with milk substitutes. The loss of life represents a massive loss of income for ranchers, he said. A lot of these families are ranching families, and that's their livelihood out there in the panhandle, and we rely on that income. Our job isn't 8 to 5, it's 24/7, holidays included. Ranchers and local authorities say although the wildfire is not expected to affect beef prices across the country, it may leave lasting economic scars for ranchers. Fields, the owner of the ranch where Pennington works, told CNN a good productive cow is worth between $2,000 and $2,400. Currently, he told CNN, he's more concerned about trying to make them comfortable than worrying about the financial losses he suffered. He credited volunteer firefighters with saving his ranch house and helping preserve his property. He pointed out cattle prices were already high before the wildfire hit, and they will likely continue to go up in the aftermath of the blaze. Anderson, the agricultural economics professor, told CNN the effect on cattle ranchers will be multifold. In addition to losing animals, affected farmers have also lost grass, hay, barns, and fencing to the blaze. A mile of fencing alone might cost between $15,000 and $18,000, he said. Some relief might come from government programs designed to help farmers in the wake of ecological disasters. The USDA has instructed farmers to document their losses and take photos of each dead animal for reimbursement through its disaster assistance program. The Texas Department of Agriculture coordinates its own relief fund for farmers and is also working to connect farmers in need with hay through its hay hotline. Anderson said despite how challenging the wildfire will be for Texas ranchers, it is unlikely to have a significant effect on beef prices. The number of affected cattle is small compared to the total population across the U.S., he explained. If the fire hits your ranch, it's a huge disaster to you. But we don't expect to see price effects to consumers because of this. For Pennington, the incident has proved the challenges of separating the business from the emotional side of his work. As sentimental and as attached as you get, it still has to be treated like a business, surveying the herd of injured and traumatized animals. But look at these baby calves. How could anybody be mean to any of them, he said. So that is a terrible, traumatic, indescribable situation that has happened down in Texas. We pray for the farmers affected and pray that the coming days things will improve and be better. My next report has to do with weather as well. And this report is more local to our state and our area. The El Nino climate pattern has caused above normal temperatures throughout the 2023-2024 winter season. According to the National Weather Service, no snow was reported at Raleigh-Durham International Airport this winter. This is the first time that's happened since records began in 1887. Parks and Recreation Department asked for $5 million from Durham for cleanup at lead parks and recreation department, and they've also asked for an additional $5 million from Durham for cleanup for this. Local food banks and charities rely on local farmers for fresh produce, but the warmer weather has made it difficult for farms like Raleigh City Farm to meet demands. I think about food security very, very often, maybe more than most people because of my line of work and because we are directly impacted, said Raleigh City Farm manager Maria Williford. Some crops aren't even sustainable in a warmer climate. Say we would plant out a row of 50 cabbages, expecting a cabbage to come out of 6 to 10 pounds, and they weren't growing at all because cabbages like cool weather, said Raleigh City Farm Assistant Manager Colleen Yeager. Goodness Grove owners Ryland Durham and Dane Kim have only been in the farming business for 2 years, but they noticed a big difference from their first year to their second. That's the thing with these weather patterns, warmer and then extreme cold for a short time, and that's the kind of thing that can just wipe out everything, Ryland said. Warmer temperatures force farmers to either plant their crops earlier or wait for cooler weather. Durham grew anxious about falling behind larger farms, so he decided to take a chance and plant his crops sooner than he normally would. I do feel anxious, but I know that I am a new farmer. I'm a beginning farmer, and so I'm not trying to be so hard on myself about all of that. Whether new to the farming business or seasoned, it's been hard for local farmers to keep up with the changing climate. The climate change is not a good thing, but we do have to learn to adjust to pivot with it, Yeager said. The El Nino climate is now transitioning to a La Nina climate pattern, which raises concerns about a more active hurricane season. So we'll see how that unfolds as time goes forward. We are now into the daylight savings time mode of timekeeping, and this is real interesting how all this came about. The history of daylight saving time. When asked about the origins of daylight saving time, you may imagine farmers in the distant past getting an extra hour of sleep or an extra hour of sun to tend to animals and crops. If you do, you're not alone. The myth that farmers are at the root of daylight savings time has proliferated a common understanding of the practice for a long time. But if the agriculture industry didn't advocate for the start of daylight saving time, and evidence suggests that farmers were, in fact, opposed to the institution, then where did it come from? The real story is bound up in numerous surprising factors, including the introduction of efficient railroads, wartime energy conservation measures, and the invention of standardized time zones. To learn more, Stacker turned back the clock to investigate the history behind daylight saving time and why some people argue it shouldn't exist anymore using news reports, historical records, and government memos. To trace the origins of daylight saving time, one needs to travel back to the 1880s, when more than 144 local time zones existed across the U.S., and most people relied on a sundial tool called a noon mark to keep track of time. This lack of consistency in time mostly didn't matter until faster, more expansive railways began cropping up across the country. At that point, snafus in scheduling, missed connections, and train collisions, for example, caused headaches for railroad companies and passengers alike. Out of this chaos emerged the standardization of 4 major time zones in 1883, paving the way for new, more unified ways of timekeeping in the U.S. Thinking about changing the clocks to maximize sunlight hours, however, didn't start until the early 1900s. Germany was the first country to instate instigate a daylight saving time policy in 1916, and it was not for the benefit of farmers. Rather, it was an attempt to save energy that would otherwise be used on lighting lamps as World War I raged. Before Germany pioneered a national clock-changing policy, thinkers like British writer William Willett and even Benjamin Franklin had schemed about the potential benefits of daylight saving time, which included saving money on candles and lamp oil, as well as simply enjoying more sunlight during the colder months. By the time the U.S. implemented its own daylight saving time policy in 1918, ostensibly to save fuel for the war effort, other parties were invested in the decision. The Chamber of Commerce, for instance, was a major supporter of the legislation, likely because leaving work while it's still light outside could encourage shopping and other economically stimulating activities in the evening hours. However, the new law was unpopular among many Americans. Ironically, farmers were some of daylight saving's most vocal opponents because it decreased the vital early hours when farmers milked cows and harvested crops to bring to markets. Under pressure from the farm lobby, Congress repealed the measure by 1919. Daylight saving time wasn't reinstated until 1942, when circumstances created by World War II made the policy a priority once more. Daylight saving time was so associated with World War I that it was initially nicknamed wartime. By 1966, daylight saving time was federally standardized, and each state was mandated to either opt into changing the clocks twice yearly in observance of daylight saving time or opt out completely and adhere exclusively to standardized time. Arizona and Hawaii were the only states to opt out due to their already sunny climates. The world is moving away from this practice. Although daylight saving time has remained fairly consistent in the United States since 1966, we look ahead to when we change our clocks has shifted significantly. Initially, the change occurred every 6 months, but in 1986, daylight saving time was extended to 7 months out of the year. As recently as 2005, the timing shifted again, beginning an 8-month observance of daylight saving time. Since 2015, several states have introduced legislation calling for the end of twice-yearly time changes, with many pushing for a permanent change to daylight saving time. Supporters of permanent daylight saving time cite the economic benefits of longer daylight hours, as well as reduced seasonal depression. Outside North America and Europe, where most countries observe daylight saving time, the practice is far less common. Egypt is the only country in Africa that adheres to daylight saving time. There also seems to be a general global trend away from changing the clocks. Roughly half of the world's countries once observed daylight saving time but no longer do, with many countries changing their policies within the last decade, according to the Pew Research Center. While the world seems to have left changing their clocks in the past, the push continues to eliminate twice-yearly time changes in the United States, and most states will continue to spring forward and fall back for the time being. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed being with you. Have a good week, and God bless.